Hello. How's everybody doing? Sorry, my voice has been it's been weird all day before I even started streaming. It doesn't hurt yet, like it will after an hour of speaking, but it's been I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's the change of the seasons, or I feel like I might be like getting seasonal allergies for the first time in my life. Um, Now that I live in a new state with different foliage or whatever, but anyway, if I keep clearing my throat, I apologize. I do have coffee, half calf, um, to keep everything okay. I also have, I'll probably not I mentioned this on Blue Sky as like a joke. I got this incredible birthday gift this week, which is what it is beneath all the plastic is a uh, it is a caramel apple from Amy's Gourmet Kitchen, which make the best candied apples on the planet. And they're the kind of thing that like they're just expensive enough that uh that I that I don't um I never buy them for myself. Uh but then like I got one for my birthday and I was like, yes, this is the perfect gift is like something that somebody really wants that they would never buy for themselves. And that's what somebody got me. Nonsensical compound making a pun in the chat says cough e. How is that supposed to help? Well played. I I recorded new voiceover for my part of my process for making videos is I will write the script and I'll record it, the voiceover for it, and then uh as I fill it in, as I take my voiceover and I put it down in the timeline and I'm picking clips, I will always come up with some additional lines or different observations, or I want to slightly word something, and so I will have a day of pickup recording, um, where I record one more batch of new stuff to incorporate into the video. And what I'm getting at is that um, half of my pickup recording day for this video was just the first time I recorded it, my voice was like cracking, and I was stumbling over syllables. I was either really out of practice or uh, something's going on with the what's it called? The alimentary? No, there's a word for like ears, nose, and throat. Anyway, it's been feeling weird lately. That's all. Um, Sparky Upstart says happy belated birthday. Thank you. Scorpio gang. Yeah, I never everything I know about horoscopes I learned against my will, but people always seem very surprised when they find out I'm a Scorpio. Anyway, someone at work was very polite about it, but they were like, "May I ask, how old are you?" And I said, "I have an answer prepared for this. I am 1 year older than Anne Bancroft was when she played Mrs. Robinson in The Graduate." Which doesn't make me feel old. It makes me feel really sad about the state of women's rights in 1968 and the perception of women in 1968. Oh, Sparky Upstart says that the ears, nose, and throat is it otorhinolaryngology. Sure, that. That's why they say ears, nose, and throat doctor, isn't it? So anyway, uh, I'm very excited right now as I sit here because I made more progress in the last month on my current video than I had any month in the last since I uploaded my last one way back in April. Um, it had gotten to the point where like I'm fully recovered from my tick bite, so I can't keep blaming that for slowing down this particular video. I think what did more to slow down the production of this video is that when I lived in Seattle a year ago, I had a job that was 80% remote, 80% telework. And when I came out here and found a new job, it became 0% telework. I go into the office every day now. Um, and I was getting a lot more done on weekdays, like not like back in Seattle when I had a mostly remote job. Um, just like having it was an hour and a half every day that I just instantly got back from not having to ride the bus. And I was editing every single weekday, about an hour or two. And so I made lots of steady progress on my videos, and still only managed to release like 4 or 5 a year. And so what I wound up doing this past month is really focusing, buckling down on. I gave myself a daily goal of 15 minutes of editing a day, and I still didn't always hit it. But trying to hit 15 minutes a day has meant I have made more progress in the past month, um, than any other month since I basically moved to Minneapolis. Anyway, but so I'm making progress. I've recorded the pickups, and I'm inlaying those. Uh, it's coming together nice. I think it's going to be a good video. I mean, that's why I do it, right? And that's why I take so much time on it. Is because it's going to be out there forever. I only have the chance to make it once, and so I like to take my time and make sure it's coming together well. And I think it is. Uh, Sparky Upstart confirms they do not know how to pronounce the ears, nose, and throat specialty. They just copied it from Wikipedia. I'm glad you clarified because I wasn't sure if there were like I was looking at that word and it scanned to me like there was a typo or two in it, but now I know there isn't. That it actually is that weird of a word. Nonsensical Compound says, it's a beautiful answer to how old am I? I always say I'm the same year Jurassic Park movie, not book, came out. Okay, so you were born in 93, not 90. A nonsensical compound also says if the overall progress is improving, the strategy is an improvement, albeit imperfect. Yeah, any progress feels has felt good, especially since the tick bite, because the tick bite brought everything to a screeching halt. Um, I had before the tick bite, I was making really good progress on on two particular screenplays, and then for the first 3 months after the tick bite, I didn't even open final draft. I didn't even open the files. It took a while to get back into a writing habit, but so now I'm shooting for 15 minutes of editing and 15 minutes of writing every day, and it's like, and I'm not. It's obviously I'm not hitting it every single day, but I hit it often enough that the days that I do accomplish it feel good. I've also tried to hit a particular fitness milestone too, which I did this week, which was I set the record for myself last year was to run 5 miles in 40 minutes. And I've been keeping track. I've got like, well, you won't be able to see it on my all that text is I've been keeping track of all my my treadmill times for over a year, and Powassan absolutely. I was very close to my goal in on June 8th was my last run before I started feeling the symptoms of the virus. And then looking at my mile times after I got out of the hospital, they weren't even they weren't attempts to what am I trying to say? My first runs after I got out of the hospital weren't like competitive, right? They were just seeing if I could run, that sort of thing. But I don't know. I got back to it this week. I ran 5.014 miles in 40 minutes, and it felt good. So anyway, this has been the year of there have been a lot of grueling challenges, and I knew that nothing really, really amazing and good was going to happen all at once. So I have been just I've been trying to be consistent, um, rather than, I don't know what else you'd call it, transformative. I haven't been looking for breakthroughs. I've been looking for just putting one foot in front of the other, and I can see progress here at the end of the year, which is nice and cool and exciting and better than not seeing progress. Um, the rest of the world is going to shit, as we all know, which has been its own challenge. Uh, the mixture of staying informed and not succumbing to the darkness. um, but we'll figure out the balance. Oh, Sparky Upstart asked a good question. Is that 15 minutes spent on editing or editing until 15 minutes of finished video has been done? Um, definitely just 15 minutes sitting in front of the computer, working on the timeline. It usually translates to about a minute and a half of finished video every day, which is, like an abysmal progress rate. But then on the weekends, I spend more time because I can spend more time, and then I make a little bit more progress. But yeah, just 15 minutes at the computer, and it's I don't consider it enough, but it's a realistic goal, and I've been hitting it consistently. Um, yeah, I wish it were my full time job, but you know what? I thought about posting this on Blue Sky, but then I was like, nobody wants to. It felt too much like self pity, and I don't like being self pitying on Maine. I actually think it's kind of funny. But I looked up my lifetime ad revenue stats on YouTube. Now, to be clear, I have never received a payout for my YouTube videos. They've never met that threshold, and I only have like 10 monetized videos. Most of them are ineligible for monetization because of all the clips that I show and the music that I use. Like oftentimes a whole video will get demonetized just because of like the 30-second outro song I picked, but it's like so thematically perfect that I don't want to get rid of it. I'm like, I will use it. I just won't make money off of it, so it becomes fair use. Well, I mean that's not the only definition of fair use, but it's still fair. Anyway, the point is, uh my all my videos, my monetized videos have accrued a grand total of like $125 in ad revenue. I do not know how people who do YouTube for a living do YouTube for a living. No clue. Nonsensical Compound says, "Yeah, I saw on Instagram some running update and had to, as a non-runner, assume that was growth." Yeah, basically. And Running Man is coming out this weekend, the remake of Running Man, which it's getting middling reviews, but I still really want to see it. It's um the one review that really tempered my enthusiasm. Somebody was like, "It's not as dystopian as the current world is." And if you want to make a dystopian drama, it's got to be more dystopian. And right now we're going through more than the main character. And I was like, all right, that'll temper the old expectations a bit. But I do still want to see it. I haven't seen that many movies in theaters this year for a variety of reasons. I mean, some of it's just laziness. Others is like, movies don't start getting played until like about 11 a.m. And that's usually when I like to get home from my errands on the weekend. I like to knock them out as fast as possible. Plus, it's like going to see a movie in theaters becomes half your day because like if it starts at 11, you have to get there by like I would have to leave my house by 10:15, so then I'm not doing anything starting at 9:30. um so it's like I stop doing what I'm doing at 9:30 for an 11 a.m. show, and then they show like half an hour of commercials. So a 2-hour movie starts at 11:30, uh, which takes you to 1:30, and then you drive home and you're home by 2. But then so seeing a 2-hour movie took you from 9:30 to 2 p.m., and you still have all your chores and all your errands to do. and it's just easier for me to just watch a movie, to spend less money to rent it and watch it in the comfort of my own home on a 55-inch OLED TV. Um, anyway, when I one day I'll get it's not a fault of the medium that keeps me away. I see it more as an issue of not having enough free time to go see movies that frequently. Uh, when I can still see movies, whether I go or not. Anyway, but what it means is that I've seen like 2 or 3 movies in theaters this year. I've seen a lot of new movies, but, like, just, like, through home premiere stuff. Um, and I don't know, this one looks like a good candidate for going to an actual theater to watch. Nonsensical Compound says, "Hold on, no payouts just from YouTube ad revenue or no payouts from YouTube sponsorships," asking as someone with a From. Oh no, From. I've been paid by From before. Yeah, I did. I wasn't speaking ill of From. I'm only speaking about YouTube ad revenue. Never gotten a payout from YouTube ad revenue. From, we had a deal and they honored it and they've been fine. I haven't actively been pursuing From because for a while From, what happened with From? So, I got From set up. I approached them, because I don't pursue sponsor, or I don't. What am I trying to say? I I don't think sponsorships make my videos better for the most part. So, but I came across a product that I thought was really cool and movie related, and I was like, I can I can actually talk enthusiastically about this for 60 seconds. And so I reached out to him, and my first payment was a free From. In fact, I don't even think it was free. I think they just sold it to me at cost. So like they made no money on it. Um, but I still had to pay for like shipping and the material costs. Um, and I plugged them. Uh, and then they came up with like the referral link, and yeah, they were giving me the money that that was earning. Um, and then I guess From is a very special product where like most people who are going to buy one are probably only going to buy one. Um, and it's just a very specialty product. Anyway, the point is, they weren't. What am I trying to say? They were fine with what I was making, but after like the fourth, I think, sponsored video, they told me, they were like, "Let's pause the sponsorships and revisit the topic in a couple of months and see what happens to sales." And I knew I could check the sales figures and see. Anyway, the point is, like, a bunch of people bought Fromes for like the first two videos that I plugged them, and then everybody who was gonna buy one had already bought one. And so the sales figures just like flatlined again. Um, and then they were rebought. They were bought, but they got new owners, and then they approached me and they said, "Hey, the previous owners had a sponsorship deal with you. Is that still going?" And I said, "Well, no, it's not, but I'll restart it if you want." And they said, "Sure." So that's when I restarted the sponsorship. But then the same thing happened. There was a little spike, um, nowhere near as high as it was the first time I plugged Chrome. Because again, everybody who watches me who was gonna buy one had already bought one. Um, and so I think I plugged them again one more time, and then I didn't reach out to them again to be like, "Okay, send me this from for my next video," just because it wasn't, nobody was buying them. And what am I trying to say? Um, it's not that I didn't like doing the ad reads for them, which they let me write, by the way. They did not dictate what I would say about their product, which I appreciated that a lot, that they let me have total creative control over um, what I got to say about them. Um, but where was I going with this? But it wasn't it like it after like the 6th video I did where I'm reading basically the same ad copy, and I tried to change it up with every video, and I think I did a little bit. Um, but I don't know, it became my least favorite step in the process, right? Um, and once it stopped really making money, I was like, it. I just let it sort of wither away, and I haven't reapproached them. Anyway, so that's just a very roundabout way of saying yes. From paid me. From was great. Um, it is the YouTube ad revenue that I've never seen a dime from. I also never got a button. You know, when you hit 100,000 subscribers, you're supposed to get like a silver play button or something. I never got one. But you read their fine print and they're like, yeah, it's not that everybody who hits 100,000 subscribers gets a play button. It is everybody who hits 100,000 subscribers might get a play button. And that's fine. I would probably do something goofy with it, like display it upside down. That's my go-to gag. Like when I did my video about do I regret going to college to study film? Um, I posed with my diploma or my degree, and it was upside down the whole time. The comments were like, your degree is upside down, and I'm like, yeah, I know. Anyway, Sonatira says, "Ah, yes, the growth of civilization is watching stories that used to be dystopian become just topian." That's funny. Topian should be how the times are described. Sparky episode said, "I've definitely stopped going to movies as much lately because it used to be a socializing thing too with my friends, and we're all quite busy. Yeah, everybody's super busy. Everybody's overworked. We're like used to be there were like like there was one streaming service, and then there were three that were all free with ads, and now there's the last I checked, I think there were 487,982 and a half streaming services. None of them are free except Tubi, but with ads. The only one that is free without ads is Canopy that I know of anyway, and that one is through the library. So you get like 10 rentals a month, but they're digital rentals. And anyway, I only found out about Canopy after I had made my video about what's the best streaming service and why is it Tubi. And Canopy definitely would have gotten a big shout out if I'd have known about them. Anyway, but yeah, it's become sort of a we all have so little free time and all of our commutes are getting longer and longer, and our buying and the buying power of our pay is getting smaller and smaller, and it's just a big ask to like keep current on movies and add an extra 2 hours to the process of watching a movie just to see it in a particular location. And everybody's seeing different things too, because like nobody subscribes to all the streaming services at the same time. Because like who could? They're making more movies than ever. It's not just a matter of like being able to afford all of them. Nobody has time to watch them all. And movies don't really have ad campaigns anymore, not like they used to. So it's hard to even tell what everybody else is gonna go see. Anyway, yeah, it's like the way that s- the way that I socialize about movies in real time with friends is like through Letterboxd. Like I follow my friends and I can see what they're watching when I open up the app. Uh, and I'll see what they think of it from how they rated it, or maybe they've written a review, and then I'll go and add it to my watch list. But even then, we're not talking to each other about the movies. We're just kind of seeing them at the same time if we're lucky. Like movie oubliette is that my probably my favorite podcast about movies, and they do one episode every 2 weeks, and sometimes and like I try to make a point of watching their film before their episode drops every 2 weeks, and sometimes it's really a struggle to watch one particular film in a fortnight. We just all have so little free time. Anyway, Sparky Upstart said, "So now it's either me doing double features on weekdays I get off work, or using them as a courtship ritual." Yeah, and I I look at my letterboxd and I'm like, I do watch a lot of movies, but it's like, um, it's it's a mixture of like shoving a lot of other things aside or booking myself really tight, uh, just to be able to watch half as many movies as I feel like watching. Anyway, Sparky Upstart says, "I bought 2 Fromes because of you." Um, which 2? I'd be interested to know. I think what did I do? I wound up doing I got Jurassic Park 3, I got Total Recall, I got The Platform, which is not on Blu-ray. Netflix is holding it hostage. Um, I got Shape of Water, and I got Birds of Prey. That was 6. Uh, I can't think of any more. It might have just been those 6. Anyway, Sparky Upstart says the 2 Froms I got were Into the Spider-Verse and Cats Don't Dance. I didn't know they had Cats Don't Dance. That was one of the things I appreciated about them real early, like before I got a sponsorship, is they had really obscure stuff on there that, not that Cats Don't Dance isn't obscure, but like they had like a bunch of Powell and Pressburger films, which like I haven't I haven't met somebody who knew what who Powell and Pressburger were since film school, but they had them, and I was like, that's cool. Anyway, you all know what I like about them because I pitched them 6 times across various videos. And I would get more. I would like to have more. It's the kind of thing where like I only have like 3 hanging up in my apartment at any given time, but I like to swap them out just to change up the color palette. Anyway, Nonsensical Compound says, "Sorry to hear From sponsorship model didn't work better, especially since they gave you control of response." It's fine. I mean, I was just excited enough that they sold me the first From that I ever got at cost. I was very excited for that. And then it generated enough money to make it worth plugging 6 times, so it's not like I regret it. Um, I don't know. In a world where every single company is trying to switch to a subscription model of some kind, even going so far as to like break their products a little bit so that you have to keep giving them money to use them properly. It felt good to just give a shout out to a product that like most people are going to buy once and that'll be that. It felt good. I don't know. Oh, Sparky Upstart, another pun. You're watching films in Fortnite? A Fortnite, not the Fortnite. Nonsensical Compound says, shout out to the platform, which I'd only heard of because of this channel. Yeah, I didn't even remember how I found that one. I think it was, I make a point of like either Tuesday or Friday of every week. I just sit down in front of the TV and I just like go through and see what movies have come out. And I find a lot of random stuff. Like one of the films that's going to be on my top 10 favorite films this year is a movie called Sharp Corner, which I'd never heard of, never saw a trailer, didn't know that any, and it's got like some famous actors in it, and I didn't know that they were doing this, but I just found it scrolling through. Uh, it must have been, it was probably Amazon because I paid for it. I paid to rent it for the night. But yeah, a lot of my favorite films that I find each year are just like, hey, what's this? And the trailer looks interesting, or the pitch looks interesting. And I'm really excited to be bringing the top 10 list back because a lot of people said that they really appreciated my recommendations, which feels really cool. Anyway, it's been too long since I've seen the platform too. I could try and structure this live stream a little better by doing what I usually do, which is pulling up Letterboxd and looking at the movies I've watched over the last month. Uh So I did watch earlier this week because I had Veterans Day off or Armistice Day, if you're British. And so I watched the Godfather trilogy, which I'd never watched them in one sitting before. I'd never watched them even close to one sitting before. Uh, it'd be like I would watch The Godfather, and then 6 months later I'd watch Godfather Part Two, and then 6 months after that I'd watch Godfather Part Three. And I hadn't seen any of them in probably 13 years. I don't think I'd watched any of them since I joined the workforce. Um, so it was interesting to revisit them. I did have my feelings about them change every time I watch them. Um, and anyway, it's always, I feel like the question is like, there's two questions that every reviewer tries to answer when they review the Godfather trilogy. It's, are you a part one or part two kind of person? And do you think part three is fine or terrible? um, and I think I got a really clean a really clean impression of my own thoughts. And that's Godfather is 4.5 stars to me. Godfather 2 is 3.5 stars, and Godfather 3 is 2.5 stars. So we started at 4.5, and then each one lost a star after that. Um, man, sorry, my nose is angry at me right now. I don't know why, but anyway, um, I don't know. What can you say about The Godfather? And people at work asked me the next day, they were like, "Did you do anything cool on your day off?" And I was like, "Okay, look, I watched the Godfather trilogy, which sounds like the most film broest thing ever, but it's like I haven't seen them in forever. Uh and I'm not like one of those people with like a Godfather poster on his wall. I didn't have a Godfather poster on my wall when I was in college. I always really liked that movie. Um but yeah, like there are people who make that their whole impression of film and their whole vision for what film can be, and I'm like, calm down. It's a great movie. One of the best gangster films. I don't think it's the best. Personally, I prefer two Scorsese films to The Godfather, and that's Casino and The Departed. But anyway, it was fun to have an excuse to sit down and watch a trilogy like that, though. That was the real appeal. And then I start with the most recent things that I watched, and then I go further back. So then the night before that, I watched a movie called Clock Watchers, which Letterbox tells me is from '97. Um, it's a movie that I heard a lot about. It's regularly described as like the female version of Office Space, which is a gross oversimplification. First of all, it came out before Office Space, um, but it's about these four temp workers in the late '90s. It is possibly the most Gen X movie I've ever seen, which made it hard for me to get into. Um, Not because I don't like Gen X or anything, but because Gen X was dealing with very different problems uh, in the late '90s. And like in my review on Letterboxd, I compared their temp experience to my temp experience. I was a temp for about it wasn't long. It was about 5 months in LA. When I graduated college in 2011, um, I moved to LA because I knew I wanted to make movies. I had this degree in film, and I had interned for 2 summers, summer 2010 and summer 2011. Um, and I was like, okay, this is the thing. You major in the field, you get 2 internships in the field, and then you graduate and you join the field. Well, obviously that didn't happen. I'm sure I've said this story multiple times across various videos, but the producer that I had interned with for 2 summers, uh, he lost his job right before I graduated college. And so he spent like the next year trying to find the right company for him. Um, and in that time, he apologized profusely, and like he would like have lunch with me in LA. He was like very supportive, but he like it didn't turn into any. I wound up having to get a job as a temp to find work, and the temp agency was not good at it. I I did the thing every day, every night. I'd call in and be like, I'm available the next day. Call me as soon as you know if you have a shift for me. And they gave me 5 shifts in 5 months. Um, I like by the time I ran out of money and had to go back to live with my parents on the other side of the country from LA. I had like such a marginal relationship with the temp aid. Like they were communicating with me so little that I didn't even tell them I was leaving LA. Um, and then I got a call from the temp agency like 4 months after I left LA, and they were like, "We haven't heard from you in a while. Are you still local?" And I was like, "Nope." And they're like, "Oh, okay." Like it didn't sound like they had any hard feelings or anything, but it was just temping was so. I am getting so far off the point of how was Clock Watchers, but completely different temp experience is what I'm getting at from what is displayed in the film. And so it's not that it's a bad movie; it's just very much of its time and of its place, and it made it difficult to dial in for me. I watched Scarface because I'm on an organized crime kick. Apparently, uh, I watched the original Scarface from 1932, not the remake with Al Pacino in '83, which I've actually never seen. It's been on my watch list forever, and I do want to watch it before the end of the year. But I watched the original. Uh, the one I'm talking about, the Scarface that is like very clearly based on the life of Al Capone, which was released when Al Capone was still alive. um, and the way that they got away with putting so much violence into a film in 1932 was they adopt this really moralizing tone. Not throughout the film. It's mostly just an opening title card and then an ending title card that's like I can't remember exactly how it goes, but it's this high horse moralizing. This is not uh, this is not an endorsement of organized crime. It is an indictment of organized crime, and we demand to know what the U.S. government is going to do about the things depicted in this film. And it's like whatever. They had to they made a crackerjack crime thriller and they bookended it with these two little moralizing title cards. And like I respect the hustle because it's a great movie, great little movie. I watched Sinners, which was not my first watch this year. I saw it in theaters back in May, and then so this was my second watch. And the first time I saw Sinners, I knew I really, really liked it, but it did so many things that surprised me, and so many things that challenged me as a horror film viewer that I would. What am I trying to describe? Like, I had a hard time fitting my feelings into the what am I trying to say? Um, the movie felt so different and new that I didn't know how it was generating the feelings that I was feeling. And so I knew I was impressed with it, uh, but I wasn't sure if the parts that really destabilized me were just challenging me or actually faults with the film, I guess you could say. And after I gave myself the past, 6 months for my impressions to crystallize, I rewatched it and I'm like, no, yeah, it wasn't screwing up. It was just challenging me and doing new things that I didn't expect. Um, and I love me a horror film that's even sadder than it is scary, and Sinners very much fits that bill. I also think it has a lot to say about not rainbow capitalism, but like the capitalism that pretends to be inclusive. Like the vampires could be a metaphor for like capitalism, like when Boeing um buys a float in a pride parade and like you want to tell it get the fuck out of here. That's how I felt the vampires were presenting in Sinners when they show up and they're like, let's all just be kind to each other. This is the dream, man. Come and join us. Um, and I thought it was crafted. I thought that metaphor was being crafted kind of deliberately, which I really enjoyed. Anyway, saw Sinners again, liked it even more than the first viewing, is what I'm getting at. And then I watched Mississippi Masala, which is this. It is a. It's from 1991. It's a romantic dramedy. Not dramedy. I mean, there's stuff to laugh at, but it doesn't feel like a comedy really. But it's about this Indian woman and Denzel Washington, who is American, who is born and raised in Mississippi, and they start a romantic relationship, and neither of their families like that an ethnically Indian woman is getting together with an African American man. Uh, and it was a good movie. And then as I'm scrolling through Letterboxd afterwards, there's all these Mamdani references. And I'm like, how is Mamdani connected to this film? And I look it up. His mom directed it. His mother is a filmmaker with movies in the Criterion Collection, apparently. So anyway, that was Mississippi Masala. And then I watched Monsters Inc. because I was feeling a Pixar, a golden age Pixar. And I know I love Miss Monsters Inc. It's always been one of my favorite Pixars, but it's one of those films that like I don't know, like I call it a favorite, but I couldn't remember the last time I watched it. I can quote it, but I can't remember the last time I saw it. Um and so I watched it and it was a very validating viewing because my partner watched it with me. And my partner has always been like, I don't like Monsters Inc. I can never get into that one. Not into it. No. And then my partner seems interested in it while we're watching it, and the movie ends. And my partner goes, "You know what? This movie's pretty good. I think I was just a hater the first time I saw it." Which was very. I immediately overplayed my hand. I was like, "Well, then we should watch The Incredibles because you've always said you're not crazy about that one, and I think that one's great." And my partner was like, "Maybe not tonight." uh, I watched a very fascinating little film called Theater of Blood, um, which is this Vincent Price movie from 1973. And it is about this Shakespearean actor, this high minded Shakespearean actor who he's destroyed by this group of critics who give him a series of horrible reviews. And he tries to commit suicide by jumping off of a balcony into, I guess that's the river. Blah, blah, blah. He lands in water basically, and he accidentally survives his little jump. And when he emerges from the water, he decides instead of taking his own life, he's going to take the lives of all the critics. And so he lies low for like a year, and then he reappears and he starts killing off the critics via methods that are murder methods that are depicted in Shakespeare films. And it was fascinating as like a tonal experiment. Oh, and I just pulled up my review and it opens with fascinating little tonal experiment. And I'm like, oh right. I didn't remember I'd written that, but I do remember that being my impression. Where it's not like howling with laughter funny. It's the kind of movie where like they'll do something and like I'll look at the screen and be like, oh, that's funny. Even though I'm not like cackling hysterically. Um anyway, Theater of Blood, I'd heard it was fantastic and I really enjoyed seeing it. On election night, November 4th, uh, I was craving what has become my comfort watch in the post-Trump era on election days, which is Fury, which is it actually made my top 10 list. It was only the second top 10 favorite films of the year video I made, but Fury was on there. And it's about a tank crew, a World War II tank crew at the very end of the war. I think it takes place in like over the course of like 2 or 3 days in April 1945. So the Allies have already made it way into Germany, and Germany is on its last. Germany is on the ropes, but they are also fighting down to almost like Hitler issued some decree in the last month or two of the war that was like every single German is now a German soldier and you're all to fight to the death. Um, Basically, Hitler did the thing to German citizens that America was afraid the Japanese emperor would do to all Japanese citizens, but he never actually did. Hitler's the one who did it, but you don't hear about it because they were so racist back then that the, they would separate like their hatred of the Nazis from their hatred from the Japanese based on racial qualifiers. But anyway, the point is, it's a great movie about just like it's this interesting contrast between they're winning the war and it's almost over, but they're encountering the fiercest resistance they've ever seen, and they are stretched thin and undersupplied, and I don't know, it's really good. I've heard it described as the anti-Saving Private Ryan. Um, there's a lot of superficial similarities. Um, but yeah, I think it's going for a very different vibe from Saving Private Ryan. Anyway, I don't want to I don't want to say too much about it because then I'll just start spoiling stuff, and I don't want to do that. Nonsensical Compound says it takes a genuine hater to admit when they've simply been hating. Yeah. Nonsensical Compound says, "Wait, what's this film title of End of World War II racist measures?" It's called Fury. Just one word, Fury, and the reason the film is titled that is because that's the name of their tank. And it's not that the movie is racist. I'm talking about the literal people in charge of America during World War II. Um, like the high command that was trying to pick out which Japanese city to hit with a nuke years and years and years before the end of the war, who would never dream of doing that to a European city simply because they were white people. Those guys were the racists. Sparky Upstart says, I've never been one for war movies, but back when Fury came out in theaters, I had some friends who wanted to see it, but none of them drove. So I drove them there. And while they watched Fury, I watched Big Hero 6. I saw both of those films. No, I don't think I watched Fury in theaters, but I did see Big Hero 6 in theaters, which in part I remember because it was the first time I ever got a cocktail at a movie theater. And I sat down with my cocktail to watch Big Hero 6, and it was a packed theater, and right next to me is what is clearly a dad, his 3 elementary school kids, and then their mom. And the dad turns to me and he goes, "Is that a cocktail?" And I go, "Maybe." And he goes, "Nice." I don't remember much about the movie, but I remember that's what the dude sitting next to me said. Fury is intense. Fury is, um, I think when people talk about how Saving Private Ryan is intense, they're mostly talking about the physical violence. And Fury might actually have less physical violence in it than Saving Private Ryan, but thematically, it's so much more brutal, I think. I don't know, in like the first 2 reels, uh, Brad Pitt forces Logan Lerman to shoot an unarmed prisoner of war to make a point about um, Nazis. um, Although I had a lot more trouble watching that scene before the Nazis took over. After the Nazis took over, um, I became less sympathetic to depictions of Nazis being killed in film. Nonsensical compound says, "Do you remember the specific BH6 commentated cocktail?" I do actually. It was it wasn't hard liquor. It was like like an alcoholic cider with like cranberry juice or something thrown in it, or like carbonated cranberry juice, something like that. It wasn't like hard. It was like half the strength of a cider. Um, but it was fun to drink. We're only going to wind up getting to, well, okay. I want to go a little bit farther because we're almost to Halloween. On November 3rd, I watched The Invisible Man, the original Invisible Man from 1933, which is great. It's nice and short. It doesn't overstay its welcome. Uh, and it's having as much fun as it's having a lot of fun scaring its audience. And I wrote in my review that it's director James Whale and star Claude Rains just uh, having a blast flipping the comedy and horror switch back and forth for 71 minutes. Because they will have really funny gags in it, and then followed by like a brutal string of murders, as brutal as you could depict in 1933. Um, anyway, before that, I watched Seventh Son, which most people have either never heard of this film or they're like, "Oh, that movie." um, I like showing posters because I'm visual, even though the poster doesn't really show up well. Um, but Seventh Son was this film that came out in 2014, and it was in not development hell, but it was like in reshoot hell forever. Um, it had like 8 different writers, although only 2 of them credited, and it was dead on arrival. The studio dumped it into like a January release window. They knew it was going to be terrible, and it was a bomb, and everybody hated it. But I find it interesting just because I have actually corresponded with one of the credited writers, Charles Levitt, because we are both graduates from the University of Chicago. And when you graduate from universities uh, at the tail end of the Great Recession, your university cannot give you a job. They can't help you find work, but they will give you a list of your alma mater who are in careers tangentially related to your degree. So I got a list of like 20 people who graduated from the University of Chicago who did something in Hollywood. And like one of them was like a lawyer who represented like movie studios. And I was like, "Do you want to read my script?" And he was like, "Not especially." But anyway, Charles Levitt was one of them. He was one of only like 2 screenwriters that I know about who graduated from University of Chicago. And he was kind enough to like talk to me about the project, and nobody hates the movie more than him, I think, because they did not film his script. He wrote the second version of the script, and then they brought in 6 other writers to tear it apart and try and put the pieces back together. um he told me he almost took his name off of it because it was nothing like what he had written, and his script was good. He sent me the original, and I was like, "This is a fine little action film," which probably would have a cult following today if they'd just filmed it like that. Anyway, uh, but yeah, the film as made is not good, uh, but it's not good in fascinating ways. I think I'll never watch it again. The only reason I watched it is because Movie Oubliette chose it for their podcast 2 weeks ago. Um, but it was an interesting thing to revisit from even just a critical perspective. Anyway, you don't have to go watch it, but it's something that exists. A nonsensical compound says, "Wait, do you have any thoughts of the Invisible Man's demise? Because I thought it missed potential with having him not stabbed by mid-hay bale pitchfork." Okay, the ending of the Invisible Man is not great. You asked if I have any thoughts on his demise. It's that I think they are spectacularly anticlimactic. Um, the Invisible Man, he goes on this murder spree towards the end of the film where he's like reveling in it and he's like predicting it. He's like telling people, I am going to run down the street and murder random people who will die through no visible means in the middle of the road, and it'll cause panic throughout the world. Um, he's like giving horrible speeches about what he's going to do, and then he goes out and he starts doing it, and you're just horrified. And he murders the night watchman at a train station and then derails the train. Um, he vows to kill. Anyway, you get the point. He's going on this murder spree, and then he hides out in a farm at night, and he's just sleeping in the haystacks. And the farmer walks into the barn and hears him breathing, and and he's like standing in his barn, and he hears breathing, and he's like, well, clearly the Invisible Man is in here somewhere. And he calls the cops, and like this army of cops show up, and they surround it, all because the dude like thought he heard breathing in there. And they I can't remember which side sets the barn on fire. I can't remember if it's the cops or if it's the Invisible Man himself or if it's done on purpose or if it's done by accident. But the barn catches on fire, and the Invisible Man comes storming out of the barn, and they can see where he's headed because his feet are leaving footprints in the snow, and they open fire, and he drops. And then there's one more scene where he's not dead yet. He's been transported to the hospital where they know he's going to die. And as he gets closer to death, he becomes more and more visible. And then so as he passes away, he becomes fully visible again. And then the movie ends. And I was like, that was pretty anticlimactic. They just like someone heard him breathing in a barn, and then the cop shot him. So it does not end strong. Um, but getting up to that point was a fun little ride. And that was my opinion of the demise of the Invisible Man. I watched Diabolique, which is this French film from 1955 about this wife and this mistress of the same guy, uh, who know full well that this guy is sleeping with two women. And the wife and the mistress get together, and they're like, what if we kill him? And one of them is all for it. The other one is a lot more reluctant, but is eventually convinced to lure him out of the city, to construct these careful little alibis, and then poison and drown him, and then dispose of the body. Um, and then their attempts to get away with it uh, go to very unexpected places. Things start happening after they pull it off that they were not intending and did not expect. Uh, and they're worried that they might wind up actually getting caught. Um, and it's the bit of trivia that you're legally obligated to tell people when describing Diabolique to them is that this is the movie that Hitchcock wanted to adapt, but he didn't secure the rights. He lost the rights. They went to the people who actually made Diabolique, and then as a cope, Hitchcock pivoted to his second most to the second most interesting project to him, and that became Psycho. So yeah, that's my bit of trivia, is that like Hitchcock was planning on adapting it, but it's a fantastic film, even though Hitchcock did not adapt it. And as I'm going through my history here, I'm seeing that I did not actually wind up watching a horror movie on Halloween, which I had been hoping for, I had been planning for. But I actually got invited by like IRL friends to go hang out with them in real life on Halloween night. And it had been so long since I had been invited to hang out with people in real life. It hasn't really been a thing since COVID hit that I was like, yeah, that's worth not seeing a movie on one particular night. But the night before Halloween, I watched a horror film, and that was The Fly 2, which is, they remake, David Cronenberg remakes The Fly in 1986. And they attempt to fast track a sequel, but nobody has any ideas about what it should be. And so they keep hiring writers who are like, and they all come on with different visions for the project, but none of them are writing from scratch. They're all rewriting the previous script. And so it, The Fly 2, it takes a long time to sort of like settle on what it is. I'd say it's like the first hour of the film is like, what should this film be? Where is this film going? Um, is this what the sequel to The Fly should have been? But once it dials in for like its last 30 to 40 minutes, it is really cool and gross and terrifying. Um, and I hadn't seen it in way too long, and so I was really happy to revisit it. Anyway, my nose has been revolting for an hour, and my throat is now starting to go like just when we hit 1 hour. So anyway, I think that's going to be it for me for tonight. I'm taking a little bit of time off from work this week. Funnily enough, before the holidays hit, and I hope to use them to make some real headway on this video. Like the more that I edit, the more I want to edit because I enjoy it. I enjoy making videos. I enjoy writing. And so I hope to make a bunch of project progress in the next week, with the ultimate intent of getting it up by the end of the year, getting it uploaded. And then I'm a little, it's been a little nerve wracking the rate at which I've been editing. It's been really slow. I don't like it. I find myself constantly wanting to get back to editing. I can't wait to get to a point in my life where I spend more time editing than wishing I was editing. um, but we'll see how things. Right now, I'm just thinking, get this video done, make sure it's good, take your time, and then see what happens after that. I have a lot of ideas for other videos that I would like to turn into videos. Anyway, thank you all again for spending your Friday night just listening to me stream of conscious about this stuff. It's fun. I look forward to it, and I hope y'all don't find it um, I think I've said it at the end of like the last multiple streams. Is I like to think I don't take your free time for granted, and I just want to thank you for hanging out with me. That's all. All right, everybody, have a good weekend. Bye.